Despite all the apparent benefits that come from having evolved so much over the years and making humans the most intelligent of all beings, evolution sometimes may not be as advantageous as we make it out to be. Homo sapiens are at a loss in a fair number of cases. Today, we're going to tell you about all the body parts and phenomena that leave us quite disadvantaged. Let's talk about how evolution has failed us in several ways. Wisdom teeth were helpful millions of years ago when our ancestors had to grind fibrous vegetables and fruits. We began cooking around 1 million to 2 million years ago. Cooking food softened it, and our teeth had to work less. Around 10,000 years ago, we started farming and cooking our food even more. This lessened the burden our teeth used to carry. Now it's hard for them to fit in our mouth, leading to gum infection, tooth decay, or tumors as well, and a dozen expensive appointments with the dentist. The blind spot is where the optic nerve and blood vessels leave the eyeball. The optic nerve is connected to the brain. It carries images to the brain where they're processed. This is how we know what we're seeing. Our eyes see the object or image and our brain interprets it. Our brains typically fill in any information we need based on the images surrounding our blind spot, so we don't usually notice it. This occurs because sometime during evolution, when our ancestors started developing light-sensitive tissues, that was the direction the cells were facing backward. Before anything could be done about it, they developed into actual eyes. You and I have bony feet. One foot has 26 bones. Together, that's almost a quarter of all the bones in our body. Now, this foot design makes perfect sense to our ancient primate ancestors because all those tiny moving parts made their feet flexible enough to cling to branches. But here's the issue. Once our ancestors left the trees and started walking upright, we needed a more rigid, stable foot to balance and propel ourselves from one step to the next. We didn't lose a single bone. As a result, our feet are too flexible and they can easily twist the wrong way, which leads to all sorts of foot-related ailments like sprains, stress fractures, and tendinitis. A genetic mutation in our recent ancestors caused their descendants to have spacious skulls that accommodated larger brains. The gene that made way for a larger brain did so by diverting bone away from our jaws, which caused them to become thinner and smaller. With smaller jaws, we could not eat tough food as easily as our thicker-jawed ancestors, but we could think our way out of that problem with the use of fire and stone tools. Yet because our teeth are roughly the same size as they've long been, our shrinking jaws don't leave enough room for them in our mouths. Nipples in male mammals demonstrate a constrained evolutionary result. They don't serve a particular purpose. However, according to doctors, there's no real metabolic cost of having nipples. Furthermore, just because men don't need nipples, it's not exactly an evolutionary priority to get rid of them. Although it's true that they don't do much to help the body in any way. Hunger evolved as a way to drive us to set on a search for food that would keep us alive and nurture our bodies. Our taste buds evolved in a way that encouraged us to pick foods that are beneficial for health. However, due to the recent changes in modernization, we've developed the taste for certain food items and cravings that are particularly harmful to us, such as excessively sugary and oily foods. Yet our taste buds demand them, and we obey unhesitantly, which eventually leads to obese and unhealthy bodies. Walking upright also upsets our spine. In all four-limbed animals, the spine bends like a bridge, helping to support the weight of its hind limbs. Then, 6 million years ago, our ancestors began to rise and force that smooth bow to the shape of an S. The upper bouts featured 2 cutaways for easier access to the higher frets. Unfortunately, this design does not make much sense. That bending of our lower back puts a lot of pressure on our back. It's therefore not surprising that 60 to 70% of people worldwide experience low back pain at some point in their lives. Unlike many of your organs, testicles simply hang out of your body. They're not protected by the tissues, fats, and bones, which makes them more vulnerable to hits and slams. However, it turns out that sperm are much healthier if kept in a cool place, so we keep them away from the body to keep them a few extra degrees below body temperature. And people are especially vulnerable. As we walk upright, the gravitational pull on our testicles emerges, which can lead to a potential painful condition known as a hernia. In the 18th century, millions of sailors contracted a disease called scurvy. Their gums were swollen and bleeding as their skin decayed and their brain rotted. Off the coast for months, sailors could not find fresh fruits or vegetables, the main sources of vitamin C, which play a vital role in the repair of damaged tissue, bones, and nerves. Now, humans, as well as other monkeys, guinea fowl, bats, birds, and fish, are the only animals that have this problem because everyone can produce their own vitamin C without the need for oranges. Meanwhile, humans have a genetic tendency that hinders us from doing the same thing. Usually, it would not be a problem for our ancient fruit-eating ancestors. The first air-breathing fish and aquatic animals animals extracted oxygen through water in the water and the old lungs when they were on the ground, and to do so they had to be able to close the glottis, or ventilation, when underwater. Importantly, the entrance to the lungs was not blocked. When underwater, the animals pushed water past their gills while at the same time pushing the glottis down. We're the offspring of these animals and are left with a remnant of their history, including hiccups. And we use old muscles to quickly close the glottis while sucking air, not water. They no longer serve any purpose. One of the reasons it's so hard to stop hiccuping is that the whole process is controlled by a part of our brain that originated long before you knew it. So try as hard as you can't get rid of the hiccups. When we stand upright, our stomachs hang down instead of being held in place by the abdominal muscles in this new position. Our interior is not well supported as our four-legged ancestors. The intestines rested on a jumble of internal organs, including, in men, cavities in the body wall where the scrotum and its nerves descended during the first year of life. From time to time, our intestines find their way through these cavities to form a hernia. There's a lot of vacant space in our skulls. 4 chambers in your brain are known as sinuses, where the air is humidified, cleaned, and filtered by mucous membranes when air enters via your nose. The mucus then drains down from your skull through your throat to your stomach. This works well for the sinuses on top, but the ones behind your cheeks drain up, which is why you're easily a target of colds and sinus infections. Many animals, such as dogs, do not have flu or infections because they have elongated nasal cavities which drain all the mucus down their throats. In many animals, the larynx and esophagus are aligned so that the esophagus is down to the trachea. In a cat's throat, 2 tubes run almost horizontally and parallel to each other before passing through the abdomen and lungs. In this setting, gravity often pushes food down to the ground below. Not so with humans. The larynx correction allows for speech to push the throat and esophagus down to the throat to make it happen. At the same time, our upright posture puts the trachea and esophagus in an almost vertical position. These changes leave falling food or water with about a 50-50 chance of falling in the wrong tube. As a consequence, in those moments in which the epiglottis does not have time to cover the trachea, we choke. We and a few other species, such as naked mole rats, lost our fur when we lived in tropical environments. The most plausible explanation for this is that when modern humans began to live in larger groups, our hair filled with more and more ticks and lice. Individuals with less hair were perhaps less likely to get parasite-borne diseases. Being hairless in Africa was not so bad, but once we moved into Arctic lands, it had real flaws. When our ancestors were covered in fur, muscles in their skin called erector pili contracted when they were upset or cold, making their fur stand on end. These are the muscles that raise its bristling hair. Although we no longer have fur, we still have fur muscles just beneath our skin. They flex each time we're scared, and in doing so give us goosebumps that make our thin hair stand uselessly on end. That's it from our side for today, folks. Subscribe to the channel and like the video for more content. We'll be back with more videos soon. Until then, goodbye.